They say practice makes perfect, and the way to get ready for your fantasy baseball season and really nail your draft is to mock draft. Hey, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back into another episode of the Fantasy Headliners, and we're putting out another mock draft video. I did one a few weeks back. I'm changing up a little bit this time, and we're going to focus in more along the lines of a starting pitching strategy and then a couple of other strategies that I looked at while going through this mock draft. And then I also changed up the format a little bit. I've added some more positions as well in this draft compared to the other draft. So wanted to change some things up a bit, talk about a different strategy with you, walk you through some different things that I'm thinking as the draft is going on. Again, we don't want these videos to be too long, so I already did the mock draft, and I will put the draft boards up on the screen for you so you can see them a little bit better, and you can see exactly how some of these rounds are going. I'm going to be specifically talking about my team mostly, but you'll be able to see where every team landed with each pick in each round. So before we get rolling into this, though, just want to remind you that if you are new to Headliner Nation, hit that subscribe button. If this is the first time you're watching one of our videos, we would really appreciate it. And if you do hit that subscribe button, make sure you comment below and let us know so we can welcome you to Headliner Nation. And also comment below with any other questions that you have about this strategy, a different strategy, players, keepers, whatever it may be. We're one of the most interactive channels here on YouTube. You comment, we will respond. Make sure you like the video as well. Would really appreciate that. Thanks so much for tuning into this one, and let's start rolling into some of this analysis. So the first part of the draft here, we're starting in round 1. You can see round 1 through 8 there on the screen. Like I mentioned, the one thing that I'm doing differently in this draft that I have done in other drafts is I focus a little bit more on starting pitching. I've mentioned it with the ADPs recently. They fluctuated a lot, and where guys like Max Scherzer was going mid-first, and then guys like Chris Sale and Jacob deGrom, Corey Kluber, Justin Verlander, they were going like mid to late second. That is starting to change quite a bit, and you can see that on this board, how much it has been changing. So I wanted to show you a video where I'm really focusing a little bit more on starting pitching than I did with the other one, and I do that right away by starting with Chris Sale in round 1. The only other pitcher that I would take before him would be Max Scherzer, so that's exactly what happens here. I would probably go Corey Kluber over Verlander or deGrom, but that's not how it played out here. Getting Corey Kluber there in the late second is really good value. So Scherzer, Sale, deGrom, and then Kluber and Verlander are how this shakes out. Good value as those two are still kind of towards the back end of round 2, and then we have 3 starting pitchers go in round 1. In round 2, I go with Paul Goldschmidt, and I go with him over like a Jose Altuve, a Giancarlo Stanton, a Chris Bryant, because another thing that I've been noticing is that first basemen are going to be moving pretty quickly in these drafts now as well. You can see quite a few of them taken in the first 5 rounds here. There are a few guys that I like value-wise in a little bit later rounds, but none of them are nearly as safe as Paul Goldschmidt is. And the reason I don't go with like a Jose Altuve here, and I'll talk about that here in a second, is because there's some other guys that I'm looking at a little bit later for the middle infield. So I'm working on some different positions at the beginning now. Andrew Benintendi for me in round 3, a guy that I'm literally probably every round 3 pick that I've had in every mock draft, I take him. I really like him. The possibility for all 5 categories if you play in a 5x5 league. This is a guy that can contribute in every way, shape, and form, and to get that in round 3 is really good value. In round 4, I go Anthony Rendon, a safe play, a guy that is not going to be, in my mind, an MVP candidate. He will get MVP votes. I don't think he'll ever be all the way up there, though, because he has a really, really safe, a really, really high floor. But his ceiling, he hasn't quite reached that yet. It might still be out there, and trust me, I'm a huge Anthony Rendon fan, so don't take this the wrong way. I really like him, but I think he's a really safe pick in round 4. Gleyber Torres, 2 of my next 3 picks. Gleyber Torres, Scooter Gennett here in rounds 5 and 7. These were the 2 guys that I'm talking about, you know, a little bit better value after the fact. So with these guys, I take Torres to be my shortstop. If Xander Bogaerts had been there, I would have went with him, but Torres was there instead. So I go with him, and I add him to shortstop. Scooter Gennett, I add him to second base. And those are two really good bats up the middle that I've gotten good value there for. And then also in these first 8 rounds, I've taken 3 starting pitchers. I take Jack Flaherty as my starting pitcher 2. I take Jose Barrios as my starting pitcher 3 in round 8. And at this point, I've put together a decent rotation, in my opinion. I really like these guys. All of them have really good upside, in my opinion. Flaherty and Barrios, we just haven't seen a whole lot from them, but they are getting better and better and better. Flaherty, obviously, on fire this spring training. So I do like starting off my rotation with those 3 guys in my first 8 picks. And I feel like I'm off to a really good start, just kind of overall. I don't have nearly the speed that I would like to have, probably, but, you know, we'll look on working on that a little bit later. So let's check out let's move on to the next set of rounds here. We'll go rounds 9 through 17 now, and right there in the middle, starting with Will Myers, the top of round 9 there. Will Myers is my next selection there, and I actually take him, and you'll see here I take 3 straight outfielders, and the reason I do that is because with this format, it's a little bit different than the last format that I had. So now instead of having 3 outfield positions, I have 5. And I've also added a corner infielder and a middle infielder. So when you have 5 starting outfield slots, it's really important to do a good job of drafting your outfielders. I got my 1 good outfielder in Andrew Benintendi, and then after that, I'm looking for some decent value there. Will Myers, if he's healthy, I think is an excellent player. Andrew McCutchen, a guy that I think a lot of people are sleeping on this year. And then Aaron Hicks. I go Aaron Hicks in round 11. He's got that brand new shiny contract. He hits in the middle of a good lineup in a good ballpark, so why not take a shot at him in round 11? I think he offers me good value. I go with Robbie Ray in round 12. He's a guy that I really like to hopefully bounce back this year. If Chris Archer would have gotten to me, I probably would have went with Chris Archer over Robbie Ray there. I just really like Chris Archer to bounce back again this year as well. Would have really liked to maybe, and I also thought about him in round 11 over Aaron Hicks, but I decided to go outfielder there instead. So Robbie Ray is a guy I hope to bounce back. I get my catcher in round 13 with Wilson Ramos. I thought about Wilson Contreras at one point, but I decided to keep waiting. As soon as Contreras went off the board, though, and as soon as Posey went off the board, I got a little bit worried, but Grandal went off before Ramos, so I was able to get Ramos. I really like him being in New York now. I think he is a really good catcher. Last couple of years, obviously coming off that injury, had to take an entire year to get really back into it. Last year had a much improved season. He'll be even better this year. In round 14, I take Paul DeJong, another guy that I really like this season, a sneaky under the radar type guy because he may have let owners down last year who were expecting him to take another step forward. He didn't do that. I take the shortstop here because he's a guy that I can also play in my middle infield spot. And he also offers, that utility spot as well that I'd like to do. So I have 2 different options I can do with him there. Now, my next 2 picks after that is I start to get into relief pitching a little bit at this point. Cody Allen, Archie Bradley, 2 guys that I both believe will offer me some significant save upside this year. Archie Bradley, being out in Arizona, they add Adam Jones out there. We'll see what he ends up doing. That helps that lineup a little bit in Arizona, so good to see him finally come off the board in free agency. And then in round 17, Garrett Hampson. I go with him, and I talked about it already, that I had some concerns about my potential steals. I think I have some guys that will swipe some bags, but Garrett Hampson would be the guy that leads the charge. So if Paul DeJong isn't doing that great of a job, I can put Garrett Hampson in the middle infield, and I can put him there and really ask him to rack up those stolen base attempts for me. So closing out round 17, I take Garrett Hampson as a guy that can be on my bench, or he's a guy that I can put in my middle infield spot because he is going to take down a bunch of stolen bases this season. Then we get into round 18, and I start focusing again back to my outfield a little bit. I go with Adam Eaton, a guy that's hurt, it seems like all the time. But he has always offered some decent upside when he's not hurt. Again, he could swipe some bags for me. Hitting leadoff can offer the opportunity to score some runs as well. And I go with Domingo Santana after that, a guy I think, again, is a big sleeper this season, a guy that I really like that if he were to get 500 plate appearances, I'm going to book him for 30 home runs. So we're keeping an eye on him here in the late rounds. Absolutely a guy that I am going to add is my 6th outfielder. So I have 6 outfielders on this team now. After that, 3 starting pitchers right in a row. I go John Gray. I'm not entirely sold on John Gray, but he has the talent. It just hasn't materialized at this point. If for some reason he were to turn it on this season, round 20 is a great round to get him. Not holding my breath. At this point, when we're this late into the rounds, Pedro Strop there as well. I'm taking around 21 to finish off my relief pitchers. Jesus Luzardo and Pete Alonso back to back. So now at this point, I'm looking for some guys that can take some waivers on, some guys that could turn out to be steals for me. But I'm going to go ahead and take them now. I'll let the rest of spring training play out, and then if I need to drop them to add somebody, if they don't make the Major League roster, I'll do that. But Jesus Luzardo, a guy that you've heard me talk about, and Pete Alonso, guys that you've heard me talk about. If you haven't watched that video yet, check out my breakouts video, and I'll go more in depth on why I think both of those guys are people that you want to keep your eye on and own in 2019. Nico Goodrum might be a really odd pick here in round 24, but the reason that I took him is I always like to have one guy on my team that has a bunch of position eligibility. Nico Goodrum, he hit for a little bit of power last season, but he's going to play a lot for the Tigers. He might not be out there every single day, but he'll be out there quite often. Josh Harrison, who they have on the team now, a guy that basically did the same thing that I think Nico Goodrum is going to do. He's never going to play the same position daily, but like Josh Harrison back when he was with Pittsburgh, he might be at second base one day, he might be at short, he might be at third, he might go to the outfield for a little bit, he might go to first base. Nico Goodrum's going to do that. He could be all over the field, so he's got a lot of position eligibility. So I take him now just for the heck of it because it gives me a lot of that flexibility towards the back end of the draft here, and I can have him on my bench to move around, fill some spots, and anytime that I have a player off, I know that I have a chance to fill that spot with Goodrum. And then I take my second catcher, Jonathan LaCroix. Man, would love for him to get back to hitting the way he did when he was in Milwaukee. Just hasn't happened. Out in LA with the Angels, we'll see what happens with him there, but I needed a second catcher, so I decided to go with Jonathan LaCroix in round 25. So that was just a quick breakdown here of the mock draft. Again, you can see all the positions, all the teams listed there, all the rounds, every pick. So if you have more questions about a pick that was made, why maybe I went someone instead of somebody else, anything, make sure you comment below and ask me. Again, we try to keep these videos a little bit shorter, and I'm already over that 10-minute mark at this point. So talking about my team and my draft picks and things like that. So if you have other questions, please make sure you hit the comments up below and let me know what those are, and I will get back to you as fast as I possibly can. But just wanted to discuss another mock draft strategy here with you and walk through a kind of a different look than we saw the last mock draft I did. So if you haven't checked that one out, make sure you go do that one as well. Check out those breakout videos, everything that we have out there for fantasy baseball. If you're still prepping for your draft, check out all of those things. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Fantasy Headliners, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.